Welcome to Cody's Car Conundrum, where you will hear about car news, car culture, and car talks. Here's your host, Cody Wagner.
Hello, everyone. I am back again with another week of podcasting. I have a special guest this week, Mr. Ralph Gilles, head designer of FCA. How are you doing?
Great. Good afternoon.
So I guess we'll start off with the 12 questions I have lined up here. How did the engineering team get the Viper to be so sure?
Well, the Viper is actually what we call a mid-engine supercar. So it's the engine's in the front, but it's so far back that the driver and passenger actually straddle the engine. So if you can imagine where your kneecaps are is where the back of the block is, kind of where the clutch is, I guess. That's why the car is so wide, so that the engine can fit in between. A lot of people don't know it, but it's actually 2 inches shorter than the latest 911. So it's shorter than it looks.
Yeah, I actually did some research on that. The wheelbase, anyway, is even shorter than a Subaru BRZ as well.
Yeah, it's actually about the size of a BRZ. It's just a lot wider.
Yeah,
it looks bigger.
That's amazing to me.
Yeah.
So what does a typical day look like for you?
My day is kind of a neat thing. I mean, some days are honestly I'm answering a lot of emails and doing a lot of meetings because running an office this size is like running a small city sometimes. But a fun day is when I walk the studios and I get to look at sketches. I mean, that's my favorite time of the process is when ideas are literally pencil sketches or digital sketches, and we're debating ideas even without sketches. Sometimes just words and Post-it notes on a wall. So I just in general, I like the creative process. I like pondering the future with my designers and then watching it take shape. And then the other favorite part of strolling the studios and watching all the different, because any given day there's some projects, because we have like 7 studios. So some projects may be in sketch form, others are in full-size clay form, and others are getting to the shiny stage, I call it, where the car is pretty much ready to go into production. So there's kind of each process. As I walk through the studios, it's like a time warp machine going from the different processes.
Yeah, the Chrysler Portal must have been very interesting to see come to life.
Yeah, it was. It was a lot of fun to do, and that was a little quicker. Most cars take between 2.5 years to 4 years to do, and
Wow.
The Portal as a concept car, we thought about the car for over 2 years, but the actual making of the car took less than 7 months.
Wow. What was the most frustrating car to work on in the wind tunnel?
The wind tunnel, frustrating. That's a good question. Well, sometimes cars that look aerodynamic aren't necessarily aerodynamic, and some cars that look, blocky can be actually surprisingly slippery. I wouldn't say none of them are frustrating because I love the process. My designers love going through the wind tunnel because you always learn something, even though no matter how long you've been designing cars, you always learn something because a little detail on the front of the car can affect the back of the car when you're doing aero. But I would say probably the Pacifica was fun because it's a good-sized car and trying to make it as slippery as possible, and it's best in class, and it's also the most aerodynamic van we've ever done.
Yeah.
And a lot of that actually came from the underbody of the car, parts that we don't have to do with, where engineering had to really be creative. And luckily, we had a brand-new platform, so you can really think about where every little hose and cable and suspension arm goes. And when you add that with the work we did on the top side of the vehicle, you get something really, really efficient.
Wow, that's incredible. I remember reading a lot of comments of people trying to figure out what the Pacifica was based on.
Yeah, it's its own platform. And honestly, it sounds really funny, but if for any reason you see one or you're at a dealership, it sounds crazy, but I would get on my knees and look under the car. It's beautiful how, it looks like a race car underneath, solely flat and really, and most of our newer cars are made that way. And to be honest with you, the Europeans have done it that way. The new Alfa Romeos are that way from us. And there's just a lot more time being spent on aerodynamics in general in the industry.
Yeah, the underside of the new Ferrari 812 Superfast is incredible.
Yeah, at the auto show a few years ago, they almost hung the Ferraris upside down so people could appreciate all the work they did. I'm sure when you play with your Hot Wheels, you look under them, right? So, it's funny, all those Hot Wheel cars are flat. The new cars are actually looking like Hot Wheels cars.
Yeah, I actually have one on my computer right now. What's your favorite car?
I like, it depends what side of my brain you're talking about. In terms of, you're going to laugh at me, but I love minivans. I always have. I think they're the most practical thing you can get. But right now I'm in love with my Giulia. It's my daily driver, which is a new Alfa Romeo sedan. It does everything. It's a great commuter car. It's very efficient. It's very sporty. It's fun. The racer side of my brain, I love the Viper still. I really, just because I actually use it as intended. I go to track days, and it's my hobby. I do about 12 track days a year, and most of it's the guys I hang out with, but it's a lot of fun to really try to master that car. It's like a fighter plane on on a road course, you know.
Yeah, that's what a lot of people describe the cockpit as, fighter plane tight.
Yeah, but I like a lot of cars. I mean, it's a really difficult question to ask a car designer because I really respect a lot of my competitors. I like a lot of our own products, but I like elements of many different cars. I think, you know, but the thing that turns me on, so to speak, about cars in general is I can recognize the effort behind any car. Like right now, the Ford GT is hard to argue. It took a lot of willpower to get a car that radical through any system, you know, or any company.
Yeah.
So I really have to
that car looks incredible.
what
It's
Ford
interesting
did.
that you say that you really like minivans. I like a lot of 80s American cars.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you're not the only one with weird taste.
They were going, yeah, that was a quirky stage, you know, even our little Omni GLH, you know, there was some really,
Oh, I love those.
they put big engines in some pretty homely cars and turned them into cool cars.
Yeah, the Shelby CSX is probably one of my favorites.
Yeah, the Shelby, yeah, that's great.
So what two vintage cars would you love to do a vintage racing shootout in?
Oh, wow. Well, it's an easy one. I love the Alfa Romeo GTV or GTA. Because they used to do Trans Am racing with, it would be the Europeans against the Americans, Datsun BREs, and that whole era of racing was great because the cars looked like showroom cars. They really were called showroom racing, and all they had was, you know, fat tires on them, and they were really cool. So I think if I go back in time, I'd do that. And people still race them today. I just came from Laguna Seca, the historics, and people are still running those cars around a couple times a year.
Still going around racetracks.
Yeah.
So
but I've done open wheel school. I really like, I've done the Jim Russell school, other ones like that, the Bondurant schools, and I love open wheel. They've had open wheels for years and years, but it's something really, really visceral about driving an open wheel car like that.
Just going to a go-kart track, the action karting out in Bandimere made my hands sore. So what are the fastest times in your backyard go-kart track?
Well, I have there's two versions of the track. There's a long and short loop. I think on the short loop, the record's like 25. I think a friend of mine who's a pro racer beat me by 1/1000th of a second. So I think it's like 25.663 or something like that. And then the longer loop adds about 15 seconds. So it's a lot of fun. We actually just had some friends over this weekend, and we do kind of like a leaderboard, Top Gear leaderboard type shootout where same car, same track, everyone has 3 laps to try to beat each other, so it's a lot of fun. No drinking allowed, though. I'm tired of fixing fences, so everybody's only drinking water. So.
Yeah. What was the idea behind putting 22-inch rims on Vanessa?
Well, it goes back to this love affair with minivans I have. I mean, we coined the term man van a long time ago. We just love the idea of why can't a van do everything. I mean, when I had my first minivan, I had a child on the way, and I bought a minivan, and I switched it. You know, I put bigger wheels and tires on, and I got a lot of thumbs up. I just did it for myself. I just thought it was fun. And I had to sell my sports car because we could only afford one vehicle at the time. So I tried to make my van as sporty as I could. And then when we got the New Pacifica, I just as an experiment, we tried it. It's not validated, so we can't endorse it for anyone else to try it. But we did as an office project to see how the vehicle would look, and it looked great with 22s, and we blacked out all the chrome, and it's just there to almost what the aftermarket does. We wanted to see what if someone wanted to, what they could do with the minivan, and it looks good. You know, Pacifica. If people have looked it up on my Instagram, they could see our project Vanessa. We called it Vanessa after Vanessa Williams, Miss America. I forget what year that was.
I saw those Instagram pictures. They look great.
Yeah, and again, and now it's now part of our fleet in design, so people borrow it all the time, and they get a lot of great reactions from.
Cool. So, were you always interested in cars?
Yeah, I was. I mean, I grew up. I'm a little older than people might think, but I grew up in the '70s, and back then the cars were not very good looking because there was a lot of crises going on. So the designs were quickly changing from large American cars, and the Americans were trying to do small cars, and they just weren't good-looking cars. So I grew up walking the streets of Montreal, staring at the cars, and as a kid, I didn't know why, but I just thought they were ugly, you know. And I remember tripping on a few beautiful cars, and thinking, wow, those cars are gorgeous. You know, why are those so pretty? And I started to buy car magazines, and I noticed there was a huge difference between the cars that I thought were attractive and the ones that weren't. So I started to kind of pay more attention to that, and then, of course, I discovered supercars, and the supercars kind of stayed pretty cool, you know. Now, if you remember, you're probably not old enough to remember the very first James Bond movie, one of the early ones that had the Lotus in there. And back when I grew up, cars were almost like stars. I mean, cars were featured in movies a lot, and even nighttime television, primetime television had car themed, Magnum PI to Knight Rider to Dukes of Hazzard to, So as a kid, you're bombarded with cars almost as being as important as the star of the show was, So you almost couldn't help it.
Smokey and the Bandit more than 10 times.
Exactly. Smokey and the Bandit, the Dantana. I mean, there was a lot of shows with cars in them. So, yeah, and then I started, because my parents weren't into cars, and my friends certainly weren't. So it wasn't until much later, once I graduated from school, that I could kind of tinker with cars. But I've always appreciated them.
So what was your favorite moment when you were designing the Gen V early on?
I think it was showing it to the boss for the first time, when we finally had the model mature enough and we're ready to. We took a chance because we got the car pretty far along. He knew we were working on it, but he hadn't really realized we got it that far. So showing it to him is like opening up a restaurant and having the most difficult critic come in,
Yeah.
It was nerve-wracking, and his initial reaction was just so amazing, and so rewarding for all of us. He really liked it a lot, and was very happy with it. So that was a great moment.
Gordon Ramsay on Kitchen Nightmares, except better.
Kind of, yeah.
So what stage are you excited for future cars to enter, if you can talk about that?
Yeah, I think they already entered it. What I like about our times that we live in right now is that there's just so many type of cars out there. I mean, that really, if you think about it, all the, for the most part, all the cars that we know and love are still around, and there's a lot of future stuff going around. There's electric cars being made more than ever. There's, prototype cars, single manufacturers still around. There's corporations making some of the coolest cars ever, exotics to supercars to our Hellcats and Demons, and yet, plug-in hybrid minivans that we make. So there's just a lot of variety right now, and it's, to me, the future is that, we're really kind of offering the consumer a lot of choices, a lot of derivatives within, car lines. Like our trucks, for example, have never been more luxurious. You would think of a truck as just being a tool, but people are buying them as luxury vehicles, so we're adapting them. It's just amazing to me how much every product is diversifying into almost subgroups of itself, So in a way, the future is already upon us. I think the tech piece, we were early adopters of the big screens in the cars. The voice command is getting better every year. So a lot of the stuff that you see in the tech industry is absolutely spilling into the car. And Palo Alto, California is definitely interested in being in the car, and we welcome it. And I think it's exciting to see the two worlds kind of colliding in a good way. You know what I mean? In terms of all that, you can't read a paper or read something without hearing about autonomous cars. It's exciting.
Yeah.
I look at that as anything else. I look at it as a good thing because it would make cars a lot safer yet. I'm a big proponent of safe driving. I'm a big proponent of skilled driving. So I think if you can have that technology be an overlay and make cars safer and extend mobility for people that are handicapped or vision impaired or things like that. So I think that those solutions are going to make highways safer. They're going to make people be able to be mobile. But I really don't fear it. A lot of people say, as an enthusiast, do you look at autonomous cars as the end of an era? And I say, no, not really. I just look at it as an expansion of what we enjoy today. You know what I mean? Like you have airlines and you still have personal aircraft, So at the same time, there are private racetracks sprouting all over the U.S., all over the world, really. There's a huge movement. So as the cars get more capable, you can't really drive some of these supercars safely on public roads. So people are discovering the hobby of sports car driving, and it makes you a better driver on the road. So I think that I'm happy to see that happening as well, to keep that stuff off the roads and people hurting themselves,
Yeah. But I love that just a lot of regular cars these days are looking absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, that's exactly it. You get a lot of value in these days, and a lot of tech, a lot of performance, stuff that was on supercars 10 years ago are on everyday cars now, So
yeah, the Fiesta ST being one of them. Yeah. What's your advice for young car enthusiasts out there?
I think for one, and this is, I don't know who your audience is exactly, but I think the auto industry might be misunderstood sometimes, especially if you're not in it or not close to this area or areas that have, there's really, what I've noticed in my 25 years in the industry is how, especially in the last 5 years, it's fragmenting in a good way where, like I said, the technology piece has created new job types. I mean, right now, we have entire new departments that didn't exist 5 years ago, or we call it user experience. So we have designers that are dedicated to designing the experience of the car itself. The minute you turn the ignition on and the screens light up and the car goes into a sequence of events and all of a sudden you start interacting with the car, we're designing that experience today. Some of it's already on the road, some of it's yet to come. That's a whole field. Then we have vehicle integration, which is really exploding now. How do you combine hybrid systems with gas systems with autonomous systems all together and make the car seamless? I mean, it's a lot going on in the car. It's more complicated than spacecraft in some ways, So there's a huge tech component that's really coming heavy into the auto industry. It's not just engines, brakes, and aerodynamics. It's really much more than that. And I think a lot of the smartest young graduates need to really think twice about not ignoring the auto industry and actually coming. Not that we're having a little trouble finding that talent because they want to go into sci-fi world. They want to go into making movies and video games. I hear that so much that kids want to they play video games all their lives, and now they want to go design them and make them. And I tell you, the stuff we're doing in cars is using that same technology. We actually use the same computers that the movie makers do and the video gamers use, right? So we have some of the coolest tech that we use to create the tech. So it's a lot of fun. There's a lot of opportunities in the automotive industry.
Yeah, I hear the gaming talk all the time from my sister because she's big into STEM and she's kind of trying to figure out where she wants to go in the STEM fields right now. So gaming's a part of that as well.
See, that word offends me, STEM. You know why? Because it's missing the A. See, I'm a big believer.
I forgot to mention STEAM.
Exactly. I'm an artist, but I rub shoulders with engineers every day, so I remind them how important the art piece, because it's always going to be part of what we do. I think making what we do attractive and elegant. Designers don't just make it pretty. We really try to control the whole experience from the minute you see the car, use it. You know what I mean? So yeah, tell your sister this. We're waiting for her. We could use a girl just like her.
Yeah, that would be really interesting. After all this time of me talking to cars about her, last minute, you know what? I'm going to join you at FCA.
There you go. And even the whole idea of having more women in the industry is also awesome. People may not know this, but 52% of car buyers are women. They buy more new cars than men do, and that's definitely not what the case is in engineering, and especially in industrial design. There's really only 10% I find when I go to schools that graduate women. And I know a lot of women that like cars and love cars, but I don't think they imagine themselves in that industry, because they might believe it's more male-dominated, but that's definitely changing.
So who influenced you the most to pursue your dreams?
Chrysler itself. I mean, I think I had an aunt that noticed I would sketch all the time, sketch cars, read about cars, and she says, hey, you really like cars. So she picked Chrysler to write a letter to. She helped me write a letter to Chrysler and found the address for Chrysler. And I have it literally framed in my office, that letter they wrote back to me, and that got me to understand that, wow, there's a big company out there that actually noticed me and wanted me to apply. So I would say to anyone in that same situation, it's a lot easier today. I mean, the internet didn't even exist. That's how crusty I am, But it's a lot easier to reverse engineer careers and search different career types, and whatever your interests are. You'd be surprised how it's possible to reach someone doing your dream job. I'm sure I'm not the only one. I'm sure Mr. Lasseter at Pixar and Disney gets letters like I get from people that want to do car design or want to do animation or whatever it is that your dreams are. Go find someone who does it for a living and see how they got there and ask questions. And 9 times out of 10, everyone wants to help out the dreamers, so it's okay to dream big. But also be patient. I don't think a lot of kids, they want to, just because they wrote the letter, they want me to hire them the next morning. It doesn't work quite like that. You have to try to find the schools that are appropriate. And the other thing I would say, I meet a lot of kids, they go, well, I can't afford college. And I said, well, you'd be amazed how many unclaimed scholarships are out there. If you have halfway decent grades, you can get into some of the best colleges. And it took me 11 years to pay off my student loans. I did it. It wasn't easy, but I did it. And today I can't even remember it. I don't even, it feels like it was so long ago, and I've moved on. And made plenty of money to make up for that. So in a way, don't ever let stuff like that be a barrier. Just go for it.
Yeah.
And what I found, a lot of schools offer scholarships once you're in there and you start performing. There's still more scholarships to be had. Don't ever let that scare you away. So and throughout my career, I've had great mentors. That's another piece of advice I give to a lot of people: is make sure you find mentors to help you. And I find this generation is far more open-minded to getting mentorship. It's a lot easier now, just with the way social media is.
Yeah, I remember looking at my dad's Durango in the garage. I don't even know how many years ago, and that looking at it seriously that one time, I think is what really started it for me. Because then I found a bunch of online Viper games, and I started researching it, looking on more sites, and then the letter to you, and then here we are now.
Yeah, so. See, you wrote me a letter, and we're on the phone now. So.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm also impressed by that. I love to see people take that chance, and so I hate to turn people down when they make the extra.
My mom and my sister really pushed me to do that on Twitter, to write. You say, oh hey, look, I was that kid so many years ago.
That's great.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you for joining us. I am so happy to have you on.
That was a lot of fun. Hopefully, it was enlightening and inspired anyone out there. So chase their dreams.
You have just listened to Cody's Car Conundrum. Be sure to join us every Sunday. You can subscribe to Cody's YouTube channel at www.youtube.com/c/ViperForLifeACR. Be sure to get Cody's books on Amazon at www.amazon.com/Cody-Wagner/E/B019 K7Z8. If you have any questions or would like to become a sponsor, send an email to drtaffy777@gmail.com and put sponsor in the subject line. Be sure to follow Cody here so you don't miss any episodes. Bye until next time.